The core of just about every business at the end of the day is the bank accounts. And the reason for that is that 90%, if not more in most cases, of the business financially is going to run through the bank account at some point. You can say to me, okay, but I can charge things on a credit card, but eventually a payment's going to come out of the bank account to pay off that credit card bill. So eventually everything just about touches the bank account. The only exception might be is if an owner of the business pays for something on behalf of the business out of their own pocket. This is the essential reason why bank fees are going to be at the core of your accounting function and your bookkeeping function in a product like Xero Cloud Accounting. And this is, in fact, where you're going to start pretty much with any client, with any company file that you're using with Xero. The first thing you're going to do is link up your bank and credit card accounts so that the feeds can drop in overnight. And then each day, all that has to be done is the cash coding part. Come along with me, let's see what this looks like. When a new client comes in the door with me wanting to get set up with accounting software, and especially when they're looking to reconstruct the books, let's say even if it's just this fiscal year to date, the first thing I of course want to know is, what do I need them to give me in order to get the job done? And apart from the obvious basic information about the company, the very first thing is usually I need the bank statements. I need to see what's going on in the banking. That's 90%, sometimes closer to 99% of where all the transactions go. All roads ultimately lead back to the bank account in most cases. Even if I'm charging something on a credit card, in theory later on I'm going to pay off that credit card out of the bank account. So the only exception, as I mentioned in the write-up, are things that I might have paid for, let's say, out of my own pocket. But even then I might want to get reimbursed, and that's going to come out of the bank account. So the banking and the bank feeds, for that matter, in Xero becomes, in many respects, the central focal point of how the bookkeeping gets done. Because now that we are moving towards this near zero data entry world, then everything has to kind of start there. What transactions came out of the bank last night? And based on that, I want to be able to go in to Xero and code them. And as you'll see, we'll be able to create rules to speed up that process as time goes on. So we can say in many cases, if the transaction that downloaded has this in the name, then always code it to this account. And we'll see what that looks like as we get further into this video. When you get into your Xero dashboard, you're going to see something like this. Especially if you're in the demo company, what you're going to see is going to look almost exactly like this. And everybody gets the demo company when you take an account with Xero, and I encourage you to use it, play around with it, and get comfortable here before you start actually doing things on your own live data. When we talk about reconciling items in Xero, we're talking about a daily reconciliation that we do. This means we're reconciling all the transactions that came in the night before. So when you see this button here that says reconcile 24 items, assuming you're keeping up with this every day, what this means is 24 new items downloaded last night, and we've got to go confirm them, match them, create them, do whatever it is we need to do to make sure that these transactions are now reconciled between what's on the bank, or in the bank account I should say, versus what is in the general ledger here in Xero. So we're going to click on that, and we're going to get right into taking a look at what this process looks like. You should definitely go through the write-up though, because I gave you a lot of detailed information about what you're seeing in that dashboard and how you can use that screen. We'll come back to that. But for now, I want you to get right into this area here. And you'll see there's the Reconcile tab, there's cash coding, bank statements, and account transactions. We're going to focus mainly on these first two tabs here for the purposes of this lesson. The temptation might be, especially if you're already familiar with it, to jump right over to cash coding. Why? Because it's fun and exciting, and it makes it all look like a spreadsheet, and it does make it really easy to quickly match things in. The problem with going here first is that here it doesn't give you the opportunity, or for that matter really look to match things up. The point is, you don't want to do this first. You want to go to Reconcile first, for the reason that in the Reconcile screen here, you have the opportunity to confirm things that were discovered right off the bat as a match, and also confirm things that Xero recognizes based on history or based on a rule in terms of how it needs to be dealt with. And you'll want to do all those first before you go to the cash coding. So the first thing you want to do is here in the Reconcile screen, go through and notice, and this is important, the column here says received, the column here says spent. So when you're looking at it, and on this side we're looking at what's on the bank, what came through from the bank account. The right side, of course, is what's in Xero. So when you see money in this column, it means it's money we received. It means we got $100 from City Limousines. So City Limousines may, in fact, be a customer, which means that you may want to hold off on entering this because it's possible you'll want to go and enter a payment and apply it to an invoice. So let's skip this for a minute. Let's deal with the expenses. So here on spend money, here's 7-Eleven, and here we have a rule that's been applied. So automatically it's applied the rule where it knows, okay, 7-Eleven goes to 7-Eleven, and presumably there's an account inside of here that it gets associated with. I can click here where it says don't apply rule if for some reason in this case I don't want that rule applied. Maybe I know I bought some supplies for a car. You know, there's auto supplies in 7-Eleven. So instead of going to a meals account or something like that, in this one case I might know that I want to change it to auto repairs and maintenance or some such thing. Of course, you can click here on View Details to get into all the details of the transaction, and for that matter, confirm that everything really is going where it should. And over here, I've got office expenses, so if I wanted to, I might say, this isn't office expenses. They could buy office supplies at 7-Eleven, but more than likely, this should go to meals or some such thing. And this is probably why we don't have meals. Also, important to note from here, in this Details dialog, I can add a new account. If I choose Cancel here, and I wanted to add an account, let's just pick on a different transaction for a minute that doesn't have a match. Notice from this sort of summary dialog, there's no option to add an account. It's entirely possible that will change with a future update, but for right now, just be aware. And the reason I'm bringing this up is that I want you to do what I did. The first time I looked here and I saw that I couldn't add an account, I thought, oh, and I had to go out to the chart of accounts, add the account, then come back here. Not the case. Just click Add Details, and from within here, you can add all the new accounts you need. And that applies to all the drop-downs. So that's important to be aware of. Let me cancel and go back. Where's my 7-Eleven transaction? It's gone. I must have confirmed it in. Didn't even realize. All right, so let's go next. And here on the next page, we have a great example of what happens when the transaction's already been entered into Xero, and Xero finds a match. So on the left-hand side, we've got the Wilson Online Periodicals, and we've got a perfect match here. It's already been entered. So something like this, I can just click OK. I'm done. Right? So the idea is go through all the ones such as these that light up for you and get those matched in. Then you can go back and create what you need to create. Now let's say you see something like Central City Parking here, and it's on create because it doesn't find an obvious match and it doesn't have a memory from a rule or some such thing as far as where this should go. But let's say you think that let's say you're certain that this already has been entered. We can go find and match right here. And down here it will show you all the possible matches. And then you can simply check off anything that goes with it if you see the $12 for central parking. As you can see in this case, there's no obvious match to this. So we're going to click cancel down here. Now, I've made reference to a couple of times already, I believe, to rules and how Xero behaves when it recognizes that there's a rule to apply, and based on that it knows how to code something. So we looked at 7-Eleven as an example of that. In fact, let's go back and look at that. Let's go to the start. Here is 7-Eleven, and remember this is one where it comes up with an OK button because there is a rule. You can tell that there's a rule because it says apply rule here, but it's grayed out. Right? So that lets me know that there's a rule being applied. Now, as you can see, it's pretty straightforward. If you want to create a rule about a transaction, you click right here where it says Create Rule. In this case, we already have a rule, so I can actually click on 7-Eleven that's hyperlinked here because that's what refers to the rule. So let's click on that, and let's take a look at how the rule is structured. And based on that, you'll be able to see what your options look like here. First, really important not to miss out on this. There's a drop down here in this statement, and it's a very important one. It actually tripped me up when I first started doing this because I didn't notice it. All or any. Remember that what this is saying is that when money spent on the bank statement matches all of the following conditions. So if I set several conditions in here and this is set to all, then every single one of those conditions has to be met or the rule will not be applied. So in most cases, you're actually going to want, at least I think, you're probably going to want any as your choice here. So that if I have multiple conditions, it only has to meet one of them in order for the rule to get applied. Obviously, you can figure out situations where each one is appropriate. So here I would say any of the conditions. In this case, it doesn't matter because there's only one condition. but when the payee contains the word 7-Eleven. Now, but let's say the word 7 is spelled out in some cases. What I could do is I could add a condition here. And so again, I have payee, and I don't want equals, I want contains, because there may be other junk that comes through in the download. You know, this is the downloaded name. So maybe I want to add this condition, and just to be absolutely certain, let's say the payee contains just all numbers, 7-11. I've seen it, I'm sure, this way and this way with 7-Eleven. I'm not sure if I've ever actually seen it like this. But as long as this is saying any, I can set all three of these, and I'm still good. I know that however it comes down, if it has any of this, and because I'm using contains, it doesn't have to be an exact match. So I can use, you know, I can do it this way, and it will always work. 7-Eleven, as long as it comes down in one of these three formats, will get coded to the account. And the first thing is, before we get to the account, is the contact. So we have a contact in Xero that we created called 7-Eleven, and we've chosen to spell it this way. So this way, whether it comes in like this, or that, we're still going to associate it with the contact that we have called 7-Eleven spelled this way. And then if we wanted to, we could assign a fixed value. And where this comes in handy, a good example of how this comes in handy, is rent, especially commercial rent. So if I'm paying rent on a commercial lease, depending on how they bill me and how that lease is structured, there's a good chance I have a base rent each month, and that's going to be the fixed amount that I would put here, and anything after that is my CAM charges, my common area maintenance. So that's a great example for where this comes in handy. But in most cases, there's probably not a fixed value, so we're going to go straight down to here. And we can associate what the description is that comes in. Here's where we can associate the account. And Xero, of course, requires that you have a tax rate on there. So any 7-Eleven expenses are going to go to office expenses, right? Because it could be food I buy for the office. You can get some office supplies at 7-Eleven. Normally, I'd probably put this to something like meals. You can also set the reference, or you can set it, as I've got it set here, to take the reference from the reference. So that's the reference information that downloads from the bank. Target bank account. I can apply this rule to all bank accounts, or I can choose to only apply it to a specific bank account. There may be times when somebody that you pay, depending on which account you pay it out of, you know that it should be coded differently. Who knows? So, and then of course we title the rule. That's how you create the rules. And doing this, and I would encourage you to do this as much as possible, because obviously the more you do this, the less time you'll have to spend going through the transactions that have been that have to be reconciled. And the more time you can just click OK, 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 and kind of go down the list because you know you've got the rules established. When you confirm and complete the dialog for creating a rule, it takes you to the rules screen. So if you want to get back to your bank account, you got to click up here where it says bank accounts. And that will take you here, and then you have to go back to click reconcile 22 items. So now we've got the rule applied, we understand how we created the rule, and we click OK, and we can confirm that transaction in. And that's how rules work, my friends. This comes in handy, by the way, when you're looking at, for example, money in, right? When you're looking at money you received, this just says e-bank deposit. So let's go find and match here. Let's say I know that these were payments, it's $1,500. Let's say I know it came all from City Limousines, right? So I can start checking off City Limousines invoices, right? And I'm at 1165. So you get the idea. So this is how you can group, you can apply a payment to multiple invoices right here while you're working in the bank feeds in Xero, and just sort of pretend for a minute that, you know, these added up to 1,500, which is what the total is. Then I could click reconcile. Notice it's not going to let me reconcile because right now it's letting me know the total is out by 330.05. So it really kind of helps you and handholds you in some ways to make sure that you can't make a mistake, or to minimize the chances of that in any event. So that's where you can easily match up money in with invoices. And that's a great feature of Xero. I'm going to click cancel because obviously that's not a real match. Once you're finished going through everything that's in this reconcile screen, then we can go to cash coding. Xero has two different interfaces for using cash coding, for matching up your banking download with the transactions that you may have already posted in Xero. And there's a reason for the two, and they're put in a certain order for a certain reason, which I'll explain to you during the lesson. But the essential difference is one is a matching process where I have on my left-hand side what's at the bank, on my right-hand side what's in Xero. And there's very robust infrastructure here, and a lot of, as I mentioned in the overview on this course, very smart little things that Xero has addressed. For example, we in the past have frequently had to send spreadsheets back and forth with clients for the purpose of identifying uncategorized transactions. Well, you're going to see where Xero has a discuss feature right there in the context of your bank feeds so that you can ask the questions right there and you can get the responses, and then once the response comes in, you can code things the way they need to be. The second area that you're going to see in terms of how you can match transactions up between the bank feed and what's in Xero is actually called the cache coding screen. This is going to give you a view of what's been downloaded that looks a lot like a spreadsheet, and it enables you to very quickly and efficiently group batches of transactions and get them all posted into the general ledger at one time. Let's jump over to cache coding here. And this is the fun part, because this is where, like I said earlier, it looks like a spreadsheet and it functions in a lot of ways like a spreadsheet. And the best part about this is I can click on Payee, and I can get all these central city parkings. You can do a shift click on these boxes, by the way. And I can come over here to account and I can enter parking, and boom, it just assigns them all. And incidentally, in case you're wondering, I didn't have to do it on the first one. If I did it on any of these, it fills all the ones that are selected because they're selected. So whatever I'm doing now, it assumes I want to do to all of them. And when I look at something like this, of course, and I see that it's the same amount every day, then it looks like it's parking that we're paying for on a daily basis, perhaps. So I can put daily parking in my description, and again, because they're all selected, what I do to one, I do to all. So this is how the cache coding works. Then I can click Save and Reconcile Selected. So the idea of this screen is that you can very quickly confirm transactions in, and probably the first obvious way to do it is to do it first by payee, because that's what most often is going to drive where things get coded to the same account. So these are the two screens you have that let you quickly get in. And like I said, I can't stress this enough. If you keep up with this on a daily basis, you'll have no problem keeping up with this. I don't care how many accounts you have, how many transactions you download. In fact, the more you have, the more important that becomes. But I can pretty much guarantee you that if you keep this up to date every single day, most of the time you'll need to spend no more than 15 minutes keeping this up. There's one other thing I want to show you, maybe two or three, but they're quick. Let's go back over to the Reconcile screen. And I'm going to show you something that you probably noticed while I was going through it, and if you've played around with Xero at all, you're probably already aware, but I want to make sure, especially for the sake of those who may not be familiar with Xero prior to this. So what we've looked at so far in terms of the Reconcile screen was we looked at what it looks like when we want to create a transaction, and for that matter, when a match has been found, right? Here's one where it's found not a match, but it's recognized the transaction, and it knows how we normally want it coded, so I can just click OK. Then we also took a look at what it looks like when I have a transaction that's actually matched up with something that was already recorded in Xero, and that's where you'll see everything's green and it'll be on this match tab. I'm just kind of going through here quickly to see if I have any left like that in this demo file. I don't. So, but we've seen that. So we've seen what it looks like. It'll be green, you'll be on the match screen. And of course, if you think there should be a match, we were clicking over here, but you can also click the match tab and click find and match, and it gets you to the same place. So there's other things that I want to show you here that we kind of overlooked. First of all, if there's a transfer to record between two bank accounts, we're already looking at the City National Bank account. So if this is spent money, that would be money going out of this account, obviously, and into whichever account we choose here. And it could be going into the savings, and we can confirm that in. The other thing is, let's say, and this is great for the accounting and bookkeeping professionals who are using Xero with their clients, if we're not sure what this is, then we have this Discuss tab. And I love this because all I have to do is come in here and say, what is this? And then Control S to save, and that's it. And then my client can come in and they can see that, and they can post a response and say, what are you talking about? It's a bank fee. Duh.
and then I can go in and I can code it. So it's great because it lets you have the dialogue around the transaction. In the past, what did we used to do? We would run reports, dump them into Excel, send them to our clients, and have them comment on us, and usually the clients get back in pieces, and it's a big mess. So this is really huge in terms of being able to have the discussion in the context, right where the transaction is located, and right where it's ultimately going to get matched up and booked into the GL. So this way we don't have all the emails back and forth and the spreadsheets and all the other nonsense. It's just straight up, let's just get this done. Let's do it. Xero gives us the infrastructure to get it done and get it done quickly and get it done efficiently. As always, if you have any questions and you're an enrolled student at schoolofbookkeeping.com, please post it in the answers forum. If you're not an enrolled student at schoolofbookkeeping.com, enroll, and then you can post it in the answers forum. Otherwise, feel free to take advantage of one of our public forums, and I'm sure somebody will get to you with an answer in due time. As always, I hope you learned something and had some fun along the way. I hope you're having an absolutely fantastic day, and I look forward to seeing you in the next lesson.
Now we're going to take a look at the next natural step, which is now that we know what to do with bank feeds, we can look at revenues and see how we're going to post the income that we receive from our customers based on the sale of our products and services. Because this is accounting, I'm also going to be talking to you about debits and credits, and we're going to be looking at a profit and loss on a balance sheet so that as we post our revenue-based transactions, we can see the impact directly on those financial statements so we can see what that looks like.